Welcome to another episode of the Gay Barchives Show, where we explore gay history, one bar at a time. I'm your host, Art Smith, and today's episode is part of a new series called Gay Bar Takeover. In this series, former pioneers from various industries, like finance, healthcare, and fast food, share their journeys as they transition into owning and operating gay bars. It's a fun mix of personal stories, behind the scenes insights, and the future of LGBT safe spaces. In this episode of Gay Bar Takeover, we'll be talking with Paolo Martini. Originally from Milan, Italy, he has spent a large portion of his career in the medical research field. He is currently the Chief Research and Development Officer for Rialto Life Sciences and recently acquired ownership of the Crown and Anchor in Provincetown, Massachusetts. So welcome to the show, Paolo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am delighted to have you here. I always love learning about people who have kind of taken on a challenge in the bar business, who have decided to use the talents that they learned in other industries and bring them into the gay bar industry. Because, you know, historically, a lot of gay bars were owned by basically the local drunk who wanted a place to sit on a bar stool and drink while he was looking for a date. And these things are changing. There's a lot of people like yourself that have come from other fields and are now kind of dipping their toe in the water of the gay entertainment industry.
Yeah.
You originally are from Milan, Italy, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So how long did you stay in Milan before you decided to leave?
So I lived in Milan for about 27 years. So the first 27 years of my life, I got my education there, my schooling, and then during the graduate school, I had the opportunity to go back and forth to Paris because my boyfriend at the time was working in Paris in fashion, so completely different field. But I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in Paris, and then my first job was in Berlin in 1997 to 1996 to 1997, and that's where it was sort of my first exit from Italy into a city that at that time was exploding as one of the most incredible and more cosmopolitan and full of events, a city like Berlin, and it still is, I think, in Europe. You know. So it was a great experience to then open my mind to decide to come to the United States. So January 9, actually January 8, 1998, I landed in the United States.
So you were only in Berlin for about a year.
Yeah, a year and a half, almost. Yeah, actually, close to 2 years. But yeah, it was probably the best experience of my life.
Now, the European cities like Berlin
Yeah,
that have an active gay environment, it's very different than what we have in the US.
well,
Um,
absolutely.
it's a totally different scene. And in some respects, it's a lot more risque. They have a lot more clubs where sexuality is on the front page.
Yeah,
Whereas
absolutely.
here, we tend to play that down a little bit more in most of the bars. Did you find yourself excited to be in an environment that had those kind of outlets for you to go and experience the gay scene and be yourself?
At the time, actually, probably I was not too young, but too naive, let's say. Uh, and so at the time, I found it actually sometimes a little too much for me because it was really in your face all the time, right? And so I didn't know if I completely liked that. On the other hand, when I came to the United States and I found instead a community that were more LGBTQ plus oriented, that to me was easier, was an easier introduction to it. The sexual part, it's important, but sometimes it can be daunting for certain people, right? And it wasn't for me, but it was not what I was looking for. For me, I was looking for an identity more than anything else at the time. And that's why there are certain priority that comes in rather than just the sexuality per se, the sexual life per se.
So when you first came to the US, you were living in New York City?
No,
No?
oh, no, no, no. When I came to the United States, I had a fellowship. I was doing at the time research on breast cancer, so I had a fellowship from the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation to come and work on breast cancer research at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, in the middle of nowhere, as a matter of fact. So from Berlin, I was projected into a campus town of a campus of 55,000 students at that time, but the rest was basically nothing, right? And so it was a really a culture shock, if you will, because always lived in Europe. I've been to New York before. As a matter of fact, in 1997, from Berlin, it was my first time that I saw Provincetown with my boyfriend. He was flying from Paris. I was flying from Berlin. We got together in New York, and then we drove up to Provincetown without knowing what Provincetown was. Right? At the time, there was no GPS, there was no cell phone, there was no nothing. So with a map and a guide bought in a bookshop, we drove to New England because he was Irish. He's Irish, and so he said, "I want to go to see the Kennedy compound in Hyannis." We arrived in Hyannis, and it was the most boring place we ever seen. And so with this guide, he was describing Provincetown as the most colorful and artistic place in Cape Cod. So we got in the car, drove up to Provincetown. It was actually Carnival Week, so you can imagine arriving into Provincetown and seeing all these rainbow flags and everything that was happening there. It was a shock, but a pleasant shock, so to speak, because suddenly we thought, oh my God, this is La La Land, so to speak, the land of fantasies, right? And we stayed there we managed to find places to stay in spite of the fact that we just never booked anything, didn't know anything about it, and sort of became a point of focal. And then my boyfriend actually, when he would come back to visit, and then at a certain point, I moved to Boston, and he started to come to visit in Boston. He would always make a point to get a ferry to go to Ptown, at least for a couple of days, while I was working in Boston, to go to Ptown, just because of the memory that we had and the fact that it was a place for freedom for us. Right?
So Ptown with you was kind of love at first sight. You saw it and you knew there was something special about it that you really liked.
Yeah. And believe it or not, when I moved to Boston, which was in 2001, so 1998 to 2001, I was in Illinois, and then I got a job in Boston. At that point, I decided that I wanted to stay in the United States for work, and doing research, it's always better to stay in the United States. So I got this job in Boston. My visa straightened up, and at that point, I started to go to Ptown, but just on a daily basis. It was not really something that, because I was always busy traveling for work. There was always something, and when my work actually started to pick up a lot, then my best friend here, I started swimming with the gay team, and then I met all these people, and particularly my best friend became my best friend. That he had he bought a place in Provincetown, so I started to go on a daily trip to Ptown when I could, or weekends, particularly in was generally off season, which to me was the most beautiful time. It was the most relaxing. And Ptown with the snow, for example, is something unimaginable, right? It's almost like a Hallmark card, so to speak, and it's absolutely beautiful. And so all those memories together always brought a passion for Ptown without actually having access so much because of work. And then the pandemic came. I was in Wilton Manors, living in Wilton Manors at that time with my boyfriend, which unfortunately was not doing well. And so at a certain point, I had to leave. And I ended up, because my best friend was always trying to convince me to buy a place in Provincetown so we could be neighbors, not only in Boston, but we could be neighbors in Provincetown, right? And I remember arriving August 1st, renting, because I said, I don't want to stay at your place. I want to have my own experience. I want to have my own apartment. And so I got my own apartment. I rented during the pandemic. Everything was super cheap. And I rented my place. And 3 days, I think it was 3 days in, I called our friend that used to live in Ptown as well, was a realtor there. And I said, I'm ready to buy now.
Now,
This,
all this time
yeah,
from 2001 forward,
yeah,
you're working in Boston as a research scientist in the pharmaceutical industry.
yeah,
And suddenly the turning point for you comes when we have the biggest explosion of pharmaceutical research headlines. I
yeah.
mean, at the time that COVID hit, everybody was talking about where's the cure, where's the drug, who's working on this, what's going on, and you
And I
were
was,
right in the center of it.
yeah, I was working at Moderna, as a matter of fact. I was the chief scientific officer for rare diseases and the founder of rare disease at Moderna. So we got all at a certain point involved in the vaccine, right? And while I was trained in Fort Lauderdale, for example, my teleconferences every day was covering my team helping for the vaccine creation. And then the rest to be sure that all the rest of the activity would go ahead without, because we had animal studies and a lot of things going on for the future, right? So you couldn't stop everything. So it's become sort of probably I never worked so much in my life like in those years. And I never regret it. I would do it over and over again. It was certainly worth it, but trust me, it was a lot of work.
So, what got you into the medical pharmaceutical research field to begin with? Was it a passion to be helping people, or was it you were just a mad scientist and like working with in the lab?
No,
What was it?
actually, I come from a family of artists, and I remember one night having my father's best friend, was a quite famous architect in Italy at the time, redoing our apartment and being there for dinner and asking me the questions. I was in high school at the time. So, what is your future? And sure enough, I said, I want to do architecture, right? Because that was really my passion. And he said, absolutely not. The faculty of Milan is far too crowded. Unless you are someone special, you'll go nowhere. And so he pointed out all the negatives of being an architect in front of my parents, right? And my sister just signed up for the Academy of Fine Arts in Milan. So they were like, okay, your older sister is going to Academy of Fine Arts. You are not going to do architecture. We cannot have two artists and so I thought, oh, what is the next best things? It was biology and chemistry. And so that's why I got into it. But who gave me the passion and also gave me the sense that I needed to eventually to leave Milan and start to learn and explore more. It was actually my mentor and the PI that basically took me to graduation. That she was such an inspiring figure in my life. And at the time, a woman in science working with Pincus here in Boston on the contraception, right? When it was controversial, just percent. She was a woman in science working on it. So when you work with such an iconic figure, you feel like inspired to do more. And that's how the passion started. And then I realized that I could do research. I had enough creativity, in fact, because believe it or not, if you want to do good research, you have to be creative and enough creativity to do that. That's why I was able to get to the United States, and then within the United States, even to change subject, because at a certain point I thought that I was maxing out on certain things. I wanted to explore more, and then I got into genetic disorder and then helping with the vaccine. So I've basically done it all.
So here you are immersed in a field of pharmaceutical research. We have a huge crisis on our hands. Everybody is screaming, we need a cure, we need vaccines, we need something to keep this from killing everybody in the country, which is something that we had never experienced in the US in any kind of recent history at all.
Yeah.
And you're at the forefront of that. But at around the same time, you decide that you want to live in Ptown.
Yeah.
And you're commuting when you have to Boston.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
you obviously decided that you like the idea of living in a kind of resort town almost. It's a different environment. Boston is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, I fell in love, right? Also, there were two things, more importantly, that I met Jonathan, who is currently running the Crown and Anchor, right? And so I always had a passion for music, and I saw him one night singing, and I just fell in love, right? It was just beautiful, everything, right? That was happening while I was breaking up with someone in Wisdom Manos that was actually difficult to manage, etc. And so it was it was a beautiful moment, right? And then that beautiful moment suddenly was broken completely. By my house, I rescue a dog. I'm falling in love with Jonathan, and my ex decided that I needed to die. So he basically lured me back into Boston and had a plan and stabbed me and killed me. And I was resuscitated at the hospital after I lost all my blood, a piece of lung, went into surgery, etc. And struggling for 1 week at the hospital while dealing also with the vaccine that needed to move on. So was working with tubes coming all over and trying to get the vaccine to the finish line with so that everyone was getting something, right? And so that was the toughest time of my life, but it was clear that for me, the only way to feel safe and to feel protected was to go back to Provincetown in my new house, and I did. And I have to be honest, it was probably the toughest time of my life, but also the most reassuring, because I felt like I was in a community that would do anything to protect me. And so
Wow.
it was sort of cathartic, if you will, but not forced catharsis, I would say, but definitely an important moment in my life, and which then helped me to understand many things and build what then became the rest, right? And continuing the relationship with Jonathan and understanding that at that point, in order to give back to a community that protected me and felt like the right community to be in, was potentially to buy the Crown and Anchor and use the Crown and Anchor not only as an entertainment place, but as a place for really inducing like a sense of community, a sense of belonging that I think it was a little lost previously. And many people were avoiding to go to the Crown and Anchor because they didn't feel welcome, etc. And so we wanted to change the mentality because both our experiences and Jonathan had his own experience as well. So was to really combine our effort to create something that was inclusive, was safe, but more importantly, was elevated and celebrated, as Jonathan always says, right? And so that's what we did, and that's why we put all our efforts into that mission, and that's how the Crown Anchor came. With the idea of also supporting all the, because at the point, when you have an experience like that, you feel like you owe a lot to the people that help you. And so I started working with many group and charities. Trump was going after the administration, but was going after the trans community. So I decided that I was going to donate a lot of the money to the Ali Forney Center, which is in New York City, that has been a champion in supporting young trans kids that are arriving to the city and they rejected by their family and they have nowhere to go. And sometimes they are abused, beaten, etc. And they offer shelter, they offer education, they offer everything, right? And so all of that became centered around the Crown for me to be able to also help organizations so that they could come use our space for their, for example, fundraise, right? So we would donate the space, we would donate food, we would donate everything so they could get a full fundraising experience and not to pay a venue after all to get their fundraiser, right? And so that's how we came all together. And with Jonathan, there was no doubt, even though he's an entertainer and he loves the idea of running the clubs, etc., etc., the mission was unify sort of and implement a community that for us has had done a lot. And so we wanted to give back.
So you spent many years studying to get your doctorate and
Yeah.
to get into pharmaceutical research. And obviously, you did an excellent job performing because you would not be a chief research officer
Yeah.
or any high-ranking official in a pharmaceutical company just being a slacker sitting at their desk.
Yeah.
And then you have a life-challenging experience where you thought you were going to die, and then you decide I'm going to get into the gay bar business. What
Yeah.
did your friends and family think when you said that?
They thought that I was nuts. And, even my sisters are really open-minded liberals. Say, are you crazy? What are you doing? And everyone actually thought that I was crazy. My best friend, they said, okay, if you think that you can do it, say, but, for us, to be quite frankly, uh, uh, there was no doubt that we were going to do it, right? We did a good job. I hope so. I don't know. But at least we were going to try and to try to do what we thought it was our best way to serve a community that for us was critical because we were part of the community. So therefore, we wanted to give back, right? And so everyone was thought it was were crazy, even from Jonathan's side, right? Because particularly the Crown Anchor is a huge endeavor. There are four theaters, six bars, a beach club, a hotel, restaurants, a patio. There's a lot of activity going on at the same time, right? It's not an easy venue to run and to run on schedule for many shows and many things that we offer for the town and being also the major revenue for the town, right? For a town that basically without that wouldn't be able to sustain itself, right? So you feel the pressure also of all of that, right? And it's a lot, it's a lot of pressure, but Is it worth it? Completely. Are we exhausted? Completely. But things sometimes grows apart, etc. But that doesn't it doesn't matter. The mission has been accomplished, so to speak, and we have because we have now many people that come to us and says. The town has changed. The crown and anchor has changed. We feel like we belong. So those are the things that we want to hear. Obviously, there's always someone that is never happy, right? But if we focus only on that, we'll never do anything, right? And so in the end, we have to focus, after all, on the major things, which is our mission was to unify, and I think we have succeeded.
I think you have. I have read a lot of articles about the Crown and Anchor and about its history. From what I understand, in the early 60s, there was Stanford Sorrentino, I think,
Yeah,
was the first owner
I
that
think so.
actually started reaching out to the LGBT community.
Yeah,
And since then, it's continued that experience. The previous owners that you mentioned earlier, Rick and Bill,
yeah,
that you purchased
yeah,
the Crown and Anchor from, also expressed that they were delighted that it was another couple who was a member of the community and
yeah,
not, Hyatt Hotels or
yeah,
somebody coming
yeah,
in,
yeah,
a corporate entity trying to take away the personal feel
yeah,
and the community spirit
yeah,
of Crown and Anchor.
right.
And I've met Jonathan. I've talked to him a little bit, and from what I gather from you and from him, is that your vision was to take something that for a long time was a little bit of an exclusive white male community that mostly was wealthier people from New England, white males that would come there and vacation,
Yeah,
and you saw a grander image. You could bring the lesbians in, you could bring the bi and the trans people and make them feel welcome. You could make better use of the property to serve the community at large.
yeah.
And that is definitely something that needs to be acknowledged and appreciated, because that's the way the industry is going.
And for me, particularly, that's why we dedicated a lot of time in trying to integrate. So, for example, we have also performers that, like Lily Rose, a trans black woman, right? It's important to have this because they're all a part of us, of our life, right? And why not to celebrate everyone, right? And more importantly, why not to constantly include them in even the daily operation? So someone was telling, was accusing us for being biased. Said, if there's something that we are not, is being biased, because as a matter of fact, we employ everyone. We employ trans, we employ African American, we employ gay, we employ lesbian, we employ everyone. We have people coming from all over the world. We don't discriminate. We just employ based on capabilities, their ability to really work in a space. We also have a gallery. I always had a passion for art. As I said, I come from a family of artists, right? And the gallery is a non-profit gallery, and we don't even take a profit from the artists. But it's a way to showcase young artists that they never had the opportunity, for example, to show their things, right? And so it is for us a way to support everyone, and more importantly, particularly in the gay community, and I talking also with the California, right? There are a lot of artists, right? Artistic behavior. So we want to celebrate that. And if those one, when I work at Moderna, for example, Moderna was interested even in hosting some of the people from California to see what the scientific world look like. I did the opening for Pride once with Lily Rose for Moderna, right? And she, as our performer, came and performed while I opened Pride for Moderna. So everything to me has to be accepting, and I don't see differences. I see only when it's a time for a job, I see being capable to do the job. That's it. That's the rest is not important.
Now, do you think that comes more naturally to you because of your European heritage, or is it more because of your experience in the pharmaceutical field, where obviously the concern is what they can do, not what they look like or who they are? Which do you do you
I think it's a combination of all, right? And I was also lucky to have lived in Milan, right? To be born and lived in Milan, the fashion capital, right? They call it. And where from even, we start to go out at 16, 17, right? And I was always exposed to the sort of the fashion world and the gay world, right? And so for me, it was never a distinction. It was always a part of my life, right? And then more so when you work doing research for diseases and you don't really see differences. You only see ability to help or ability to cure a disease, ability to offer some relief for certain symptoms. It doesn't matter who, right?
right? And when you were at Moderna, your focus was on rare diseases, right? So you were not trying to generally, you weren't trying to cure the common cold. You were
No,
trying to cure that rare disease that 1,000 people in the entire world might have had.
correct.
So,
And that's has become my specialty since 2007 when Shire actually offered me a job. I was coming from the oncology world, right? Breast cancer, prostate cancer. And I looked at them and said, why me? And why are you offering me a job where I come from a different background? And they said that I had the most eclectic resume that I looked at them and said, eclectic, is it good or is it bad? And you never know, right? When they said, I said, no, 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 this is good. And that actually was the beginning of my sort of explosion, career explosion, if you will, because gave me the opportunity to learn so many things. I worked with incredible people that sort of delineate my path, and to the point that where I am now, I retired from Moderna in March 2024, and I couldn't stay retired more than 4 months because every day my phone was ringing. People were asking me to help them. What can I do? Why don't you join my company? To the point that I joined this company in August because the mission of this company was incredible. We are treating neonates, as a matter of fact. And so I thought that in line with what I was doing, this probably would be the most suitable job for me, thinking that it would be a smaller job, and instead it's becoming bigger than what it was at Moderna. But it's okay. Sometimes I'm my own worst enemy myself, and I make things bigger than they should be. But in the end, if it's helping a child, why not?
as a friend of mine who also is a bar owner in Wilton Manors, he said in his interview that he is naturally an entrepreneur, and that after he retired from his first major entrepreneurial event, um, he quickly went back to work because he said entrepreneurs don't do nothing well.
No.
So you can't sit on your hands and read the newspaper or whatever. You have to be actively doing something. Your mind needs something to focus on. And that apparently is your case as well.
Yeah, it is true. And unfortunately, I never reset my Google search instead of being on science to be on something else for a hobby. And I never even at the time to think of what would it be a hobby, right? There was far too many things to do. So at that point, I decided that it doesn't matter. Science is there. My brain is continuing to work. I need to do something, and then sure enough, right now I'm working.
Now, one of the things I read about you when you were talking about some of your plans for Provincetown and what you thought your vision was, is you said you kind of felt like it was a little bit exclusive, that people like artists and bohemian, free thinkers couldn't really afford to go there and benefit from it. And that one of your interests was in making that more possible and
Yeah,
opening doors for
yeah.
people who are not wealthy to be able to enjoy the environment and to, experience what Provincetown is.
Yeah, so what we're doing, although, unfortunately, I cannot change the economy myself. I wish I could, I had that power, but it's impossible. But at least what we do, and that's why John and I have put a lot of efforts in this. We have quite a bit of housing that basically give the opportunity not only for workers, but sometimes also off season for other people if they wanted to come and live in an affordable place that can certainly afford to be there, right? So in reality, we are creating within a bubble that is non-permissive for young artists or young kids that they want to experience something different or they want to experience a community that is more suitable for them. We are given the opportunity to be able to live and survive in such environment. So we are trying. Little by little, we are also trying to change the mentality of the town, the pushing for more affordable housing so that it doesn't become the elite place. Because it was never an elite place. It was the elite of the artists, which, by the way, they didn't have much money at the time, right? And they were struggling. And so because it was such a unique community, then people started to come and create these mega bubbles, right? And I don't think it's right. And so I'm always the one trying to find options to give opportunity to people to be able to be there.
Well, unfortunately, I think that part of that is what I call the gay curse,
Yeah,
because gay people find underused, undesirable areas.
yeah,
They go there, they make them their refuge, they put a bar there, they put restaurants and businesses there, and they enjoy them.
yeah,
And then suddenly they're on fire and real estate goes through the roof. Same thing happened. Fire Island is the same
yeah,
way.
absolutely.
Um, West Hollywood,
Yeah,
Greenwich Village,
yeah,
Midtown Atlanta, all
yeah,
these places that the gays went into and gentrified now are, incredibly expensive. Wilton Manors. Look at
yeah.
Wilton Manors.
With the manners, right? Look at that. Exactly. I mean, I remember before the pandemic, you could buy a townhouse for, to me, compared to Boston, like it was an easy buy, right? And Boston now, and here in South End where I live, when I moved to Boston in 2001, this was the gay era. And now is the typical gentrified upscale where you see the young and young couples, hedge fund kids that make a fortune. They can live. They rise the prices of real estate to crazy. And now Dorchester, which at that time was a place that probably you would never go because it was too dangerous. Now the gay moved there. There are two gay bars at least there, and they are gentrifying that. So that will be the next things for other generation to come. But the gays always find something, as you said. They gentrify, and then the economy explodes in this place.
Look at Hell's Kitchen in New York.
Yeah, same
20
thing.
years ago, when you first came to the States 25 years ago or so, you would not have gone to Hell's Kitchen without
Yeah,
an armed guard. I
yeah,
mean, and now look at it.
yeah,
So it's a crazy environment.
yeah.
Now, so let's talk about Crown and Anchor for a
Yes,
little bit.
sure.
Crown and Anchor is truly an entertainment complex.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't necessarily realize that. They think of it maybe as a guest accommodation
Mhm.
or a bar, the the guest portion, the hotel portion of the Crown and Anchor is only what, like 20 rooms?
No, they're actually 17. They used to be
17.
18, but we converted one into a gallery. So a gallery is sort of a place for people to gather and see, have a coffee, etc. So now there are only 17 rooms.
So, but in addition to 17 rooms, you have a huge pool patio area
Yeah,
with amazing space for outdoor party. I mean, that place gets packed
yeah.
shoulder
Oh,
to shoulder with shirtless people
yeah.
on top of each other, dancing and partying all summer long.
It is, and in fact, it's obviously kudos to Jonathan and what he can do in the sense uh, uh, to bring all these people for the sort of the canonical week, right? The Independence Week, then which is the Circuit Week. Then there is the Bear Week, there's the Carnival, there's the Family Week. There are all these weeks that they're dedicated to certain themes, right? And for each of this week, we offer entertainment that is suited for the people that come to Ptown and they want to enjoy the best DJs, for example, or the best performers. We have local drag queens. Also, they are resident for a long time, like Varla Merman, which is residing in Winter Manors during the winter time, right? But then in summertime, she always come to perform in Provincetown for the season. Dina Martina. Now we have Tina Bernard, which is phenomenal. She's the new resident at the Crown. So we have all these shows. We try to offer many different things. Incredible singer. Obviously, Jonathan is a singer, so. And also, I love that part, to be honest with you. So we always have these type of shows, but we have a comedy, stand-up comedies. We have a mix between singing and storytelling. So there are things that they're coming together, and they're absolutely spectacular to go to see. As a matter of fact, when I spend the summer in Ptown, I don't spend a single night at home. I go to see all the show. And also because I love to support our resident artists, so I go to see their show over and over again, right? Because for me it's a pleasure, right? And it's also in a day where it's all dedicated to science. Then you need a break, and then my break is letting me transport into the fantasy land of Yoli Mayor and her voice, this Cuban American girl. She's a powerhouse. She's been down in Milton Manor a few times, right? And so it's just phenomenal.
Now, what surprised me a little bit when I started looking into the Crown and Anchor a couple of years ago, as I've been doing my research for this project, is that you also have a variety of different bar spaces on the property. You know, a lot of hotels or lodging accommodations, they have like one small bar by the pool, another bar that's just a little dance club. But you actually have some themed bars. You have the Vault, which
Yeah,
is the closest thing there is to an eagle, I guess. Is
yeah,
that the basically
correct.
the idea behind it?
It is, and also because I say that I remember even these we're talking about 30 years ago. I was in my early, actually, unfortunately now my late 20s already. But um, when I learned about Tom of Finland and I learned about the leather community, this was a long time ago. I never had even the courage, right, to even think of myself as a leatherman until I met my ex-boyfriend, and then he was a leatherman, and so I started to play a little bit with it, and I was fascinated by the fact that. How, for example, leather can make you feel so powerful, right? And so good about yourself. And so I started to experience that. And then, sure enough, we buy the Crown and Anchor and said, oh, now I own a leather bar. I was being fascinated by the leather, right? And so with Mr., for example, with Mr. New England Leather, we also sponsor many leather events, like the Mates Weekend, the Snowbound, and those are all events also that are bringing money to charities linked to the leather community, which I think is spectacular that they do this. But we are also the major sponsor of Mr. Mr. New England Leather, and I just found out that our Mr. New England Leather got fifth in the competition, right? And so, and I sponsored it myself, and so those are the things that makes me proud that we are supporting every type of LGBTQA plus community. And we are trying to give them the opportunity really to express themselves and to, more importantly, to implement their visibility, right? Because having the vote and now give us the opportunity also to potentially implement again the leather community that started to disappear a little bit from Provincetown, and now it's coming back. So, and then the Gifford House, for example, reopened Purgatory, which also was a venue for the leather community to be there. So it's good to see that, and this is important. One of the things that Jonathan has been doing is collaborating with every venue, right? While before there was some divisiveness and competition, and now Jonathan has been able to really smoothen that and eliminate the competition and try to collaborate with everyone. Because in the end, we're all in the same community and trying to benefit from the same, right? So why not working together and be part of a pool rather than be the individual and say, I am predominant and therefore I'm winning. There's no winning here. The winning is the fact that you can offer entertainment and you can offer a safe place for the people that want to be there and they enjoy that, right?
Absolutely. And another gentleman that I interviewed a while back, who transitioned into the bar business,
Yeah.
you probably know his name is Tristan Shoecraft, and he's bought bars all over the country and some out of the country. But he says in his interview, he said, he owns the Abbey and the Chapel in Los Angeles. And he said in his interview, he said, I welcome competition. I love having competitors because nobody is coming to Los Angeles to go to the Abbey. They're coming for the whole experience. And the same thing is true in Ptown. Nobody's coming there just to go to one bar or one restaurant. They need to have the whole environment, and everybody needs to work together to make it, a welcoming place for everybody.
I agree. And also, it's important to have that because it's also a way to sort of pressure test yourself if you're doing the right things, right? Some people sometimes have better ideas, and I don't want to be setting the stage all the time. I'm not a trendsetter. I am someone that is offering something to people, and I want people to be happy and satisfied, right? And so sometimes the idea comes from other, right? And so why not? It's good to be able to share. And more importantly, in a community so tight and so small, I think a competition becomes only a deleterious almost to others, right? Is not a good thing. While competition should be a way to improve yourself more and more, to give more to a very much demanding community, right? Because in fact, we are the most demanding in terms of what we want to see next and when we want what is best, right? We always look for that.
And just like you have to think outside the box to be successful in pharmaceutical research, you're doing the same thing in the bar business. And one thing that I read just recently about the Wave, which is another one of your bars, is that you went in there, and I guess Jonathan was involved, and put up kind of a new age twist on psychedelic nautical wallpaper and covered the floor in glitter.
Yes.
And it's things like that that make an impression that people walk in and they say, wow, this is cool. I feel the energy, I feel the vibe. And that's something that, just came out of your collective heads. You didn't read in a book, you should do
No.
that. It just,
This is when Jonathan and I, I think we are visionary. I'm a visionary in the science, is a visionary in the entertainment community. And what I love of him that he has the picture in his head, right? And he knows what he wants. And every time I see something that initially seemed like just an idea, but then it was executed the way he wanted, is always spectacular. So um, it is good to see that, and for me, it's easy to say, yeah, let's do it, because I don't I don't have that type of creativity. I have another type of creativity, but not there. And so when I see these things realizing and becoming true, it's just beautiful to see how people react to it, right? Even in these days, we did the integration of the Provincetown brewery, right? For example, within the Crown and Anchor. And as businesses are struggling, we need to come together to support each other, right? So then we did this, and I didn't have a clue of what it would result. And then I saw it over this weekend, and the pictures don't really pay the tribute that it really the reality of it. It is a beautiful new space that has a lot of character, has a lot of strength in, and people just started to float into this new area because now suddenly it's a place that they want to be in, right? And so when you see that, and it's all in the head of someone, right? But the head of that one is particular, and once you see realize it, it's just a pleasure to see.
now, has it been a big change for you? I know in your career earlier, you came up with a lot of creative ideas and ways to attack problems of
Yeah.
vaccines and different medications that gave you some personal uh, gratification. But now the gratification is spontaneous. I mean, you
Yeah.
see it. You walk. You never when you create a cure for a disease, you may never meet a person who is cured by your
No.
idea, and you never know. But this time, you do one change and walk into the bar or walk into the restaurant or walk into the hotel, and you see it on their face. How does that feel for you?
It's a it's a rewarding, right? It's to the point that sometimes I stop and it almost makes me teary, right? Because it's like you see. You can create beauty, you can create anything, and seeing people responding to it. More importantly, responding to the mission and the message. That's what I think is the most beautiful part of it. And people get it. Many people get it. Others don't, and we can try our best, and they will never will, or eventually they will come to their senses and see what is all about. But more importantly for me now, seeing this coming to a reality, an instant reality with an instant gratification, it makes me smile and sometimes makes me cry for joy, obviously.
Yeah, it's definitely a different experience.
It
It's
is.
something that's real and it's going for your own community. It's not, some unknown stranger 5,000 miles away. It's
No.
somebody who's right there in front of you and you're
Yeah.
making an impact on their life. There's a huge difference between getting a trophy for Scientist of the Year from some
Yeah.
unknown organization that
Yeah.
says, "Oh, you did a great job here. Here's a statue,"
Yeah.
and then seeing the reaction on somebody's face and knowing that it's impacting their lives in a
Yeah.
positive way.
Yeah. No, it's extremely rewarding. I get over this weekend seeing these people, happy people, and I wasn't sure when I went there because with this new job, I was always traveling. I had a lot on my plate, so I was never able really to understand the full extent of everything until I saw it, right? And when you see, it's very different. It put a smile on my face, and then more importantly, seeing that everyone was smiling, everyone was happy for 3 consecutive days, right? And new people every time because the Memorial Day weekend is always a big weekend when the season starts in Provincetown, right? So it was great to see that people were responding and were responding with a great attitude, right? And with joy. So that made me that made me very happy. Yeah.
So having made this change and getting into this field, it's been what, about 3.5 years now that you've had
Oh,
ownership of
yeah. 4 actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Crown and Anchor. Uh, would you recommend this to other people that come from fields like your own, from scientific and medical fields, or do you?
Absolutely. Particularly if you have the capacity and the uh, 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 ability to put yourself into other environments that could be inspiring also for your own career and your own job, I would say absolutely do it because, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. It takes sometimes arguments. Sometimes not everyone agreeing, and that's normal, right? But honestly, when you see the results of it and what type of reaction, the type of reaction that you get from people, it's the most important things. Even when we had, experiencing different chefs coming to the restaurants with different backgrounds, with different. It makes you feel good about the experience that you are providing for these people, right? Because they are understanding, they are getting the fact that. Oh, this restaurant is good. I'm tasting something. I work with the first year with the chef, and she was eager to hear all my experiences when I grew up with a grandmother that taught me how to cook at 3 years of age. Right, we had the same birthday, so we were so close that she taught me all do secret, which then. I realized that Jonathan could learn so fast. Right? He started making pasta without any real recipe, right, to follow, because I told him you need to make it with your heart, and that's how I learned how to. Once he got it, then he was making with his heart, right, and so he was making pasta, and so these are the. I don't know. These are the things that they give you such a instant gratification. The fact that you see someone, a chef, translating some of the knowledge and some of the things some of the flavor that I experienced when I was a kid, and then reproducing with even better with her kick of obviously knowing how to mix herbs, to mix spices, etc. So those are the things that give you joy. So I always say to people, experience something different, explore other things, because particularly when you have a bar or you have a restaurant, even a bar with cocktails, right? You have an opportunity to mix flavors, to do creative things. Do it. It gives you a different quality of life, a different taste of life, a much
Uh,
taste of life.
and it all boils down to the same bottom line. If you're doing it with love,
Yeah,
that's all it takes, really.
that's what my grandmother told me from the very beginning, right? You do it with your heart. So you put love in whatever you do. You don't need to know if you need 4 cups or 5 cups of flowers and 3 eggs or 2 eggs. You know by the time that you feel it, right? And so that's it. So
And that's exactly what you're doing with Crown and Anchor as well.
I also
Everything you're doing is coming from the heart.
yeah, it is, and I hope that people see that because there are always the critics, etc. But if there's something that John and I always did was putting 100% and with the idea that it was done with love because we both have a passion for. what we do, right? And so when you have that, everything you do, it comes from a space of love, right? And and in spite of everything, in the end, the final product is love, and you see that even now, seeing the changes now for the integration of the brewery, it comes from a space of love, and you see that, and people feel it, and that's why they respond well, right?
So I have to ask you, as you're moving in, you've started a new career again, but you've still got the Crown and Anchor going. Would you do it again? Would you consider buying another place like the Crown and Anchor or another bar?
Like the
Or
Crown and Anchor,
is it?
it's too much. It's really a huge endeavor. Maybe a smaller venue, yes. I wouldn't mind because, as I said, for me, it's where you put your brain somewhere else that gives you the opportunity to experience other aspects of life, right? And the return that you get from that is priceless. Because the ability to then be able to integrate, for example, whatever gratification I get from science with whatever gratification I get from the entertainment business, it's much more exponentially elevated compared to just being always doing the same things, right? And so I would say, yes, I would do it. I would potentially one day, if I have the capacity to do something different, to do something in the same environment that gives you the opportunity maybe to explore other areas that I haven't been able to explore with the Crown and Anchor. Who knows? But definitely, yes. It can only be enriching if you want it to be an enriching. If you want to be just a money maker, I think you sort of lose the sense of the purpose, right? And for me, the Crown was never going to be a money maker. It was going to be a place where we were supporting the community, and I think in that we have succeeded. Money
Well,
making? Oh yeah.
I am so glad that you came into the picture. Um, I know that Rick and Bill were kind of ready for a change. They wanted
Yeah.
to transition, and to have somebody like you come in with fresh ideas and fresh attitude and a different perspective. That's always a good thing to keep the community alive and keep things going. I do have one confession to make, though.
Yeah.
I have never in my life been to Provincetown. So one
No,
of these days,
absolutely.
I'm going to have to come up there. And
Absolutely. And you'll be our guest, obviously, but you have to, you cannot live a life without seeing a Provincetown. Okay. As I've been to Wilton Manors, I've been to Sitges, I've been to Palm Springs, I've been everywhere. And Puerto Vallarta, right? Just talking about abroad. And so you have to. It's something and even when you go into September, October, where things is always such a place. September is probably the best month to be in Provincetown, really.
right, and it's low season. I mean, it's not
Low
really
season, but
well.
still, there's still a lot of people coming, right? So that's why you get sort of the flavor, but yet, and you get the weather, which is spectacular generally. But in a more manageable way, because between the Circle Week and Bear Week can become unmanageable. We're talking about, and Carnival Week is, we go from 4,500 people during the winter time to 60 to 100,000 people during Carnival.
I
So
can
if you
understand
imagine,
that.
yeah, the
I'm
discrepancy.
about to, in a couple of weeks, I'll be down in Wilton Manors
Okay.
for Stonewall Pride.
Okay, great. Yeah.
And as you know, Wilton Manors is only 2 square miles. It's a
Yeah.
little tiny place,
Yeah.
and they're expecting 50,000 people for Pride.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that
Yeah, we
concept.
were saying that about Willow Manor. So I'll be there probably next week for my birthday because believe it or not, my best friends, they live in Wilton Manors. So
Well, you'll have to say, I probably know some of them. I know you know Salvo. You're
yeah,
going to
yeah, I
have to
know.
say hi to Salvo.
Yeah, yeah. I always go to the Eagle. I always go basically everywhere because I know bartenders and in every places or the owners, etc. So I always go and say hi to. I do my sort of hopping into the different bar and say hi.
Unfortunately, Salvo's restaurant will not be open yet. He's waiting for paperwork.
Uh,
Um, you know how that feels.
oh, trust me, we know that for sure. Particularly in Provincetown, good luck with that.
But you'll love the mural on his building.
Oh yeah, I saw that because I was there a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So I started. I went around to see the changes, etc. So I was there for Tropical Bear, actually. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your background and about the Crown and Anchor. We wish you all the luck in the world with this not so new adventure. 4 years
Yeah.
and under the belt now,
Yeah.
and we look forward to seeing what kind of great things are going to come out of Ptown in the next few years.
You see, I think this summer will be spectacular. So be prepared. Be prepared to hear all the changes and everything they're coming. So it's good. It's good.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.